Hello everyone and welcome back to Creation Myths. I got a real short one for you today. I just want to briefly talk about this article from Discovery Institute by David Klinghoffer, because I've been warning for years about the connection between creationism and Christian nationalism and the current right-wing fascist takeover of the federal government in the United States. And this article makes that connection crystal clear. Discovery Institute is going full mask off with this one. So what's going on here is this article is about the recent paper that creationists have just latched onto regarding the degree of similarity between the human genome and the chimp genome. Now, conventionally, that number is placed at about 98%, 98 and change, because when you look at the alignable regions of the genome, between 1 and 2% of those regions are identical between humans and chimps. Now, there's a whole big chunk of those genomes that's not alignable because of either duplications or deletions in one lineage or the other. And when you include all of that stuff, when you consider each base, each individual nucleotide in those non-alignable regions as an individual difference, you end up with a degree of similarity between those two genomes in like the mid-80s, like 85, 86%, somewhere in there. Now, creationists, of course, have latched onto that number, which is completely wrong for a bunch of reasons. One, because we've known about that for a while, and everyone's always talked about the alignable regions of the genome. Two, because it's completely ridiculous to treat each one of those nucleotide differences as an individual difference. When you're looking at percent similarity, you're talking about the evolutionary similarity, and insertions and deletions can be thousands of nucleotides at a time or more, right? So it's silly to treat each individual base involved in those deleted regions as an individual evolutionary change. But also, it doesn't help the creationist case, because when you use that same methodology to compare things that all creationists agree share common ancestry, things like lions and tigers, or mice and rats, or dogs and wolves, you end up with less similarity than that 85 or 86% human chimp number. So it doesn't accomplish what creationists want it to accomplish anyway. Now, that's the short version. I'm sure other people have and will cover this at great length, but I want to point out the last little bit of this article, because what's going on here is that when the Discovery Institute was making a big stink about this recent paper within the last, 2 or 3 weeks, Dr. Casey Luskin wrote a letter to Smithsonian saying, hey, you need to change your signage, saying that the human and chimp genome is whatever percent similar. The exact wording of the sign in question is, quote, there is only about a 1.2% genetic difference between modern humans and chimpanzees throughout much of their genetic code. That's the line that Dr. Luskin takes issue with, and he sent a letter to Smithsonian saying, hey, you have to change that based on these new numbers. Now, apparently Smithsonian responded. It's kind of a non-answer. They basically said, we'll look into it if and when we change that stuff. And so David Klinghoffer now writes this article pointing out that response from Smithsonian that was not what Discovery Institute wanted them to say, and he ends with this little bit, and this is where the mask comes off. So the subheading of this section is Note to the President, and he writes, quote, I find it pretty disrespectful to the people who pay the bills at the Smithsonian, namely American taxpayers, to refuse to provide a meaningful reply when questioned on a scientific point with profound implications. Don't you? It's very clear what Discovery Institute is doing here. They're trying to sick the Trump administration on Smithsonian, just like that administration has gone after USAID and the Department of Education and the other perceived intellectual enemies, right, in the deep state. This is Discovery Institute trying to weaponize the federal government against the Smithsonian because they didn't get an answer they like. And in doing so, this makes the connection between Christian nationalism and creationism and the Trump administration completely clear. It's about using the power of the federal government to go after the people you don't like. That's what's going on here, period, full stop. And I want everybody to see exactly what is going on here. Again, this is Discovery Institute going full MAGA mask off. They're trying to sick the president on an institution they disagree with, in theory, because they're having a scientific disagreement. This makes it clear this is not about the science. This is culture war score settling is what's going on here. All right. It's weaponization of the government against your perceived intellectual enemies. That's it. Nothing more. And I want to make that clear to everybody. So whenever you see something like this, remember, whether you're dealing with Answers in Genesis, which is pretty overt about their culture war, causes that they're really fighting for under the hood, or whether it's from Discovery Institute, who tend to be a little more circumspect about this stuff, just remember that every now and then the mask slips and you end up with something like this that shows this isn't about the science at all. This is about power and politics, nothing more. And they're playing hardball. We better play hardball back. So don't get fooled. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.